The neighbor complained about a crying baby. Soon everyone decided the noise was only in her head. The noise complaint. Patricia lived alone, a small apartment on the second floor of an old brick building, half fortress, half trap. The windows faced a courtyard where a few thin trees stood like defendants on trial. She liked the house for its predictability. Pipes moaned before winter, the fridge sighed, neighbors slammed doors at exactly 6 in the evening. The first sound from upstairs came suddenly. A floorboard creaked, then a child's thin cry. Patricia thought, kids cry, that's normal, but the night repeated itself. At 3 a.m., a knock like a ball rolling across the floor. Patricia turned on the TV to drown it out, but the anchor announced, rising number of housing complaints. She flinched as if he'd said it to her directly. On the landing hung a sign, quiet house. Strict silence after 10 p.m. She stopped to read, and just then something crashed upstairs. The paper swayed in the draft, mocking her. She tried to count the steps, 5, 10, 12. The rhythm never matched ordinary life. Sometimes the noise cut off and the silence felt worse. Patricia caught herself waiting for the next cry, and when it didn't come, jolting at the radiator's click. Mrs. Wilkinson from downstairs waved it off. I sleep with earplugs, world's perfect. The words made it sound like the problem was Patricia herself. Yet she felt certain something upstairs was wrong. The house had stopped being predictable, and that meant danger. That evening, brewing tea, she noticed she gripped the cup too hard. Empty squares gaped on the calendar, no meetings, no plans. Into those blanks echoed every sound from above. Her loneliness turned the noise into a companion. Near midnight, she switched off the light and sat in her chair. The house held its breath. Then sudden bang, followed by a child's cry. Patricia gripped the armrests. She realized either she'd prove she wasn't crazy or remain the only one who heard, which was worse than any real noise. She placed a spoon on the radiator, just in case. Morning smelled of dust and paper. The management office sat in a former bank, heavy door, peeling crest, brass plate citizen reception. Patricia entered with a note where she'd neatly logged the night's times: 2:47 cry, 3:12 knock, 3:55 steps. Behind the desk sat a girl in a blue vest. Badge, Melanie. She chewed gum, snapping it in rhythm with the stamp she hammered on forms. Received. I'd like to file a complaint, Patricia said. Melanie slid her a form. 482A, fill it in. The words on paper mocked her: alleged source of noise, alleged character of noise, witnesses. Patricia filled it out like it was a verdict. Here. Stamp hit paper, gum popped in sink. We'll review it, Melanie said, in due order. An old man in a cap muttered from the line. Better file a 482B complaint on complaints, works faster. Laughter rippled, Patricia's cheeks burned. The manager's door opened, out stepped Mr. Collins, his face looked printed from a form. We value civic activity, he intoned flatly. Next. This isn't a joke, Patricia raised her voice. You can't sleep at night. Collins turned to her as if to drywall. All claims are processed on schedule, we ignore no one. Next. Next hit like a gong, the line pushed her toward the exit. On the bulletin board hung photos of missing cats, sure repair discounts, and an old notice: complaints without witnesses will not be reviewed. The letters had faded, but the meaning struck sharp. At home, Patricia opened a new notebook. On the first page she wrote large, noise diary. The words sat heavy as stones. Outside the day was sunny, children laughed in the yard, but above it all hummed one thought: they'd heard her and buried it under a stamp. That evening Patricia went to the hardware store. Aisles stretched endless, bulbs, cords, traps, keychains. At the recorder display slouched a clerk in a blue vest, flipping through the manual like a fashion magazine. I need a reliable recorder, she said quietly. The boy perked up, set 2 boxes on the counter. This one has noise reduction, doesn't catch babies though, only adults. He grinned, waiting for laughter. Without noise reduction, Patricia said, I need everything, even the bad. She chose the simplest model with a big red button and added batteries. The clerk rang her up. Should last a long time, maybe not the apocalypse, but at least a quarter. At home, she laid the gear on the table like evidence. At 3:00 a.m., the red eye lit. From upstairs came a child's whimper, then a floorboard's creak as if a heel pressed down. In the morning, playback gave only hiss and blotches like a weak station from afar. No proof. Daytime, she tried improving reception, switched on white noise. The room filled with static like an old radio catching the end of the world. Waves rushed, in the gaps phantom voices bloomed. She shut it off, noted dryly, Experiment 1. Radio crash apocalypse effect, invalid as evidence. Toward evening, Mrs. Wilkinson dropped by. So catch the monster, she asked, eyes already scanning the kitchen. Listen, Patricia said, handing her the headphones. After 30 seconds, the neighbor returned them. My fridge is louder and free, earplugs at the pharmacy, display by the register. When the door closed, Patricia set the spoon on the radiator, checked mic levels, hit record, and tapped the iron gently. The sound came clean, round, like a judge's gavel. She replayed it, nodded. In the noise diary, a new line appeared, 3:30 unidentified knock, no details. She worked like a technician, mic on the windowsill, 5 minutes silence, then one faint whine. By the door, quick shuffle like boxes shifting. By the radiator, an echo like distant marching. Each entry logged, time, place, note. The diary thickened like a case file. By the 3rd day, the spoon blended into Dacre like a salt shaker. The recorder slept on the nightstand, but at the ceiling's side, the red eye awoke. Patricia noticed she awaited the contrast, before and after the spoon's strike. Real noises sounded hesitant, her knock convincing. That scared her, yet calmed her. At last she had what bureaucracy respected, a clear trace. She shut the notebook, a fingerprint smudged the cover. Upstairs, a creak. The spoon lay ready, willing to confirm whatever truth the house garbled. The management's letter arrived unannounced. Thick envelope, dry rustle of paper, smell of ink. Inside 3 lines, complaint deemed valid. Lease of tenants in App 24 terminated. Cause, systematic noise. Below, Mr. Collins' neat signature and bold rectangle stamp, received. Patricia reread it, folded it back, set it on the table like evidence that explained itself. Now she waited. 3 days later, a van parked at the entrance, doors flung wide. 2 movers carried boxes like rushing to clear a stage before curtain. A man in his 30s lugged a crib, catching rails with his elbows. A woman held a baby carefully like glass. The child was silent, no cry, no sob. The silence around him was thick, palpable. Neighbors muttered, "See, some babies are quiet," which made the line louder than any song. On a top box, kitchen was scrawled in red. Paperwork stuck out, stamped systematic noise, Collins' signature below. Even the sheet looked smug with its clarity. No one argues with a stamp once it lands. Patricia watched from her window, counting breaths. The yard was gray, wheels churned puddles. The woman with the baby glanced back at the building, calm, tired, not pleading, just asking for what? No answer. The answer lay on Patricia's table. Mrs. Wilkinson passed with oranges. She smiled, not unkindly. At last, peace, I'll turn the TV up. The van doors clanged shut like a jar lid. Engine roared. The baby never made a sound. The van rolled off, vanished, leaving behind a yard too empty to listen to. Patricia reopened the noise diary. Time marks, brief notes, red underlines. One entry snagged her eyes, 3:30 unidentified knock. She touched the line like a seam. It no longer looked clever, more like a wedge that split fate wide open. That evening she climbed the stairs, door 24 sealed, corridor quiet as a stage set. Near the baseboard lay a strip of tape. She returned to her flat, shut the door, sat by the window. That night she slept without TV, woke to a sound she couldn't place, not a cry, not steps, just emptiness breathing steady, and that silence was louder than all the noise because it carried her own words ringing back. Apt 24 stayed empty less than a month. One damp evening a beat-up van pulled in. Out spilled three, two guys in hoodies, a girl with a speaker under her arm. They laughed, argued over the window room, hauled boxes like it was a sport, lift and make noise. Moving in became a ritual of volume. Patricia listened as the ceiling shook. At midnight the Tetris began. First a wardrobe crashed, then a table wedged in the doorway, then a couch scraped from room to room, legs grinding. Pieces collided, flipped, jammed, rhythm of thuds and screeches. Upstairs played the game, her sealing the board. By day 3 the faded sign still clung to the wall, quiet house. Strict silence after 10 p.m. At noon, the so-called quiet hour, karaoke blared. One voice dragged a ballad, another shouted the chorus half a note high, the third wailed like a vacuum. Noise fused into a choir no recorder could miss. Patricia pressed record. Red light blinked alarm. On the landing, Mrs. Wilkinson paused, listening a minute. "That's culture for you," she said. "No rehearsals, but plenty loud. Earplugs cost money, I save mine, listen free." Next day Patricia returned to the office. Same line, same smell of ink, Melanie behind the desk, gum snapping with each stamp. Patricia placed a flash drive in the noise diary. "Proof day and night," she said. Melanie raised a brow, stamp thudded. From the next room came a clang like a chair hitting tile. The mark read clear, DENIED. The lines snickered. "Try 482C, offered the old man. Complaint on a complaint denial." Collins emerged, face still blank paper. "We recall your productivity," he said, already turning away. That evening Patricia sat at home. Upstairs laughter rolled, a bottle fell, a door slammed like a shot. She wrote in the diary, 00:15 furniture Tetris, 12:00 karaoke, 15:30 falling chair DENIED. The book swelled like a file no one would read. She closed the window, but bass slipped through cracks like water. Another wave shook the floor, the recorder lay idle. Patricia stared at the ceiling and didn't press rec. Truth was loud now, but in these walls her name stayed the same. The house nodded along, stamping instead of listening. Patricia woke to bass rolling like a freight train. The recorder blinked. She shut it off, sat up, no point recording. She needed people, signatures, other ears. Morning, she carried the diary and a blank sheet for signatures, knocked on Wilkinson's door. It opened at once as if the neighbor had been waiting, in her palm, tiny silver device. "Sign," Patricia said, "I want a collective appeal." Wilkinson popped the battery out, showed it like a coin. "Perfect silence now, saves nerves and power." She pocketed it. "See, everything's a switch." Door closed soft, like a box lid. Next was the student below. He opened with paint up to his elbows, studio scrawled on his shirt. "Need your signature," Patricia said. "Karaoke, bass, chairs falling." He pointed upward. "We're an art collective, it's rehearsal of silence. Push sound to max so you can hear the gaps between." He smiled teacher-like. "Serious, it's practice." Door slammed. The sheet stayed blank. Patricia stood in the stairwell, listening to the house breathe. On the wall, the faded sign, quiet house. Strict silence after 10 p.m. The corridor smelled of coats and dust. Laughter seeped from under 24. She tried the mailboxes. One said no time. Another pretended not to hear. A woman suggested dropping complaints in the building chat and walked off without saying where it was. By evening the music thickened. Patricia set the recorder on the radiator, placed the spoon beside it, her gavel, leitmotif. She struck once, clear chime, struck again. Upstairs a door crashed, bass poured down heavy. The spoon vanished into the roar like a raindrop in storm. She logged at 1942 signature attempt, 2010 silence rehearsal, 2203 spoon not audible, hand steady, writing was easier than proving. Late night lights out, she sat by the window, the yard empty, snow falling in needles. Above, laughter, a chair, new track blasting. Patricia didn't reach for the recorder. She laid her hand on the radiator. Warm, the house alive. I have truth, she thought, but distrust has its own source. She tucked the spoon in a drawer, untrusted even by her own hands. In the gap between thuds came a brief echo. She thought it was no longer the house, but her own voice, unwanted. Before sleep, she pinned the signature sheet on the bulletin board. Morning, it was gone. Only a strip of glue remained and a note in someone else's hand. Music heals. No signature, no sympathy, just confident script unsigned. The morning began with an inspector's visit. In his hands, a stamped protocol and a photo. Radiator with a shiny spoon. Based on tenant complaints, source of systematic noise identified. He said. Metal strikes recorded regularly. Patricia opened her mouth, but he cut her off. Everything documented, evidence irrefutable. He took out an evidence bag, picked up the spoon with 2 fingers, sealed it like a weapon. Neighbors whispered on the stairs. Told you she was the one banging. And the baby. What baby? TV, maybe. The van left again, this time no family inside, just a box labeled evidence. The house fell silent, no cries, no steps, no bass, only emptiness. Patricia sat in her chair, staring at the radiator. The shine was gone, and that silence was louder than anything because, for the first time, it felt foreign.